Good morning. We continue with our lecture on cinema and modernism. We have already discussed some of them like Sergei Eisenstein, Deja Vertov, and we will be looking at a couple of more modernists, the pioneers. So, you can take down the list. One is Fritz Lang, F.W. Murnau, Jean Renoir, Jacques Tati, Max Ophuls, the filmmaker who directed Lola Montez. Max Ophuls is also the name of a character in a Salman Rushdie novel. You know, Rushdie himself is a big aficionado of cinema, old cinema. Anyone remembers which novel? Do we have one Max Ophuls novel by Salman Rushdie? Shalimar the Clown. Okay. Robert Bresson or Robert Bresson is a French name. Louis Buñuel, and of course, the Japanese masters Ozu and Kurosawa. So, these are the modernists. We will start with discussing Fritz Lang and Murnau and some other significant German filmmakers as well. So, German Expressionism, which was a very important movement. Some of us have already done that before, so but let me just take you quickly through it. So, after Germany's defeat in the First World War, the artistic form of German Expressionism captured the mood of the generation, of that particular generation. Germany had lost land and its people, and also been very badly humiliated in the Versailles Treaty. There was a collective or general feeling of paranoia and morbidity among the German people, and Cinema UFA, the principal film studio in Germany, whose job was to promote avant-garde cinema. UFA is Universum Film Academy, and it supported the endeavors of filmmakers like Robert Wian, F.W. Murnau and Fritz Lang. So, these are the pioneers, and they employed the device of expressionism in cinema. Expressionism, which was already an artistic movement, it began with seminal paintings. It was also employed in various dramas and theatres, performances, and then soon it found its way in cinema also. Though some of you must be familiar with the famous painting Scream by Edvard Munch. Yes. Okay. So, an important film of this which employed this device was The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari by Robert Wian. It is a narrative of a mad doctor, a scientist who uses a somnambulist to commit crimes for him, a sleepwalker to commit crimes for him. It is a 1919 film, and some other movies which employed expressionism were Nosferatu, The Last Laugh, and Fritz Lang's Metropolis, also Fritz Lang's M. It is often said that modern cinema begins with F.W. Murnau. Along with Fritz Lang and Wilhelm Pabst, we were talking about Pandora's box yesterday, Wilhelm Pabst. Murnau's films are full of dread and suggest a world between reality and fantasy. Murnau was also a closet homosexual, and his films in some way reflect his that reality as well, the themes of repression and sexuality. He was also a master of creating an alternative universe, and therefore, he Expressionism was God's answer to all his prayers, because he believed in creating and representing an alternative universe on screen. So, Murnau, his most famous horror film is Nosferatu, a symphony of terror, where the protagonist plays a Count Orlok, a Dracula like character. In fact, Murnau was inspired by Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, but he had to rename the film Nosferatu, and he wanted to tell the same story, but he couldn't because he received legal threats from Bram Stoker's heirs. So, he was forced to make some modifications, some changes, but the basic story remains the same. Fritz Lang, another major German director, and his films are characterized by psychological terror, paranoia, morbidity and dread. And so if you are familiar with a movie called M, are you? Yes, you are, Ranjit. How many of you are familiar with M? Please do watch it, include it in your list of compulsory watching, compulsory viewing. M and Metropolis especially. What is M all about? You have watched it. Yeah, he is a child killer. He is the protagonist is an anti-hero. He's a child killer as well as a pedophile. He lures children with a certain kind of he gives them gifts. He lures them with gifts, balloons, chocolates, and there is a whistling tune that he often plays. Exactly, yeah. So, and the entire story is about this group of very ordinary citizens looking for this person, okay, this mysterious enigmatic killer, and it turns out to be a very ordinary, very regular man next door kind of a person. He is not a villain who works in groups or he has a big den or something. He is just a person who could be lurking round the shadows, lurking round the corner in a shadow. Okay. So, that is the dread, that is the atmosphere of dread, the danger lurks around corners. Okay. No one is safe anymore, is that kind of a society we live in. And when people, the ordinary people nab him and try to take law in their hands, they want to kill him. Of course, he has killed so many children, raped children, so why not? And then he breaks into this justification that he has been taken over by forces of darkness, and then he gives vent to his repressions and to his paranoias. So, it is a very strange movie where the villain is given a platform to give expression to what happens to a person who can turn to a crime of that nature. We will talk about a French master, Jacques Tati. He was a silent comedian who worked as a mime artist when young. And with the advent of sound, as we have been talking about what sound did to many people, and Charlie Chaplin anyway never bothered and never thought much of speeches and dialogues in cinema. So, many people saw the end of their careers with the advent of sound, but but later on Chaplin succumbed to it. He had to use dialogue. Tati, however, carried on with the tradition till the 50s with some success. So, Jacques Tati. Tati's first major film as an actor was Holiday, where he plays a simple postman on his small bike in the countryside. And then Mr. Hulot's Holiday in 1953, it tells the story of Mr. Hulot as played by Jacques Tati and his vacations by the sea. So, it is an episodic story. Several hilarious incidents occur as our man takes his vacation. He arrives in his little car, meets a group of people, very stereotyped characters, types, the blonde, a waiter, a general, okay, we know the type. Okay. And Hulot does not quite fit in, he is a misfit and bumbles through the setting. So, does he remind you of someone? Mr. Bean. Now, Mr. Bean's Holiday, which was a fairly recent movie, 2007 I think, is based on it. It is a homage to Jacques Tati, the same old car, okay, all the antics, so most of the time miming. If you observe Mr. Bean very closely, he does not speak too much when he is doing his Mr. Bean. Rowan Atkinson, yes, okay, brilliant actor, but when he does Mr. Bean, there are rarely any dialogue, very few. Okay, so it is a very physical and very surreal kind of a comedy that he believes in, and Jacques Tati was his inspiration. Jean Renoir, we are going to do Renoir in some detail later on, but just get familiar with Renoir. So, he is Auguste Renoir's son. Auguste Renoir, the celebrated impressionist painter. And interestingly, Jean Renoir's birth coincides with the birth of cinema. We have been talking about 1895 at the watershed period. Jean Renoir fought in the First World War, quickly returned to Paris and got into the film business. And there are several stories about Renoir's greatness. If you read up some material on him, then you will understand what an interesting character he was in real life. He made several films, and one of the earliest film was called The Southerner, 1945, with a screenplay by the celebrated American novelist and screenwriter William Faulkner. Renoir made 40 films in all, and he has had a far reaching influence on people like Truffaut, Orson Welles and Charlie Chaplin. Many regard him as the greatest director of all time. He was one of the most formidable influence on the French New Wave, the Nouvelle Vogue. So, Jean Renoir, we will be talking about him late in subsequent classes also. So, some of his important works include Le Chien, the bitch, Boudot saved from drowning, and A Day in the Country. He was a humanist and his films reflect that. So, you do not find any traces of snobbery, any arrogance in his cinema, but an affection towards all strata, all social strata, all kinds of people. And you find his cinema a very large hearted, very open, very humanitarian kind of a cinema. His two masterpieces are La Grande Illusion, The Grand Illusion, and La Règle de Jeu, Rules of the Game, okay, which is a classic, which is a masterpiece, 1939, The Rules of the Game. La Bête Humaine, that is the human animal, is another important film by Renoir, 1938, which is based on a novel by Émile Zola. Émile Zola, the famous writer, naturalistic writer, and the idea is La Bête Humaine, the human beast, that is, there is an animal inside all human beings. No one is an angel, nobody is a saint. Okay. There is a human, there is a beast that lurks beneath or inside all human beings, which comes out at unexpected moments. That is the idea. Émile Zola, he gave us the idea of La Bête Humaine, and Renoir made a movie of it. The River is his first color film, and it is interesting. It was set in India, and Renoir was in India to shoot the film on the banks of the river Ganges. And perhaps you remember, once I told you that Satyajit Ray, a young Satyajit Ray, assisted him while Renoir was making The River, and that is how Ray got interested in cinema and the genre, or the class poetic realism. Jean Renoir was known for his cinema of poetic realism, like we have all these movements, Expressionism, Impressionism. So, Renoir was known as poetic realism for no, and Satyajit Ray, if you watch some of his earlier movies, they show a distinct influence of Renoir. Another great French master, Max Ophuls. Did not live for too long, 1902 to 57, but one of the most stylized filmmakers. For him, style was the meaning, the way you do it. His first film was Liability, about the ecstasy and agony of a young couple in love. And generally he is considered an expert on doomed love and doomed love stories. So, whatever little you have watched of Lola Montez, perhaps that gives you some indication of what kind of filmmaker he was. So, no one ever lived happily ever after in Ophuls. People were always, but they loved grandly and they suffered greatly as well. He was forced to flee, and then he arrived in Hollywood when France fell to the Nazis. So, he was a German who spent much of his life in France. After France was occupied, he had to leave, and he arrived in Hollywood, and he made stylish melodramas for Paramount Studio, The Exile, Letter from an Unknown Woman, and The Reckless Moment, all classics and all part of Hollywood cinematic history. Our Martin Scorsese professes to be a huge fan of Max Ophuls. And after the war, he returned to France and made 4 elegant classics. Lola Montez, we just watched clippings from, The Earrings of Madame de. Now, what is Madame de? Yes? An ellipsis. Madame de, that is the title of the movie, okay, The Earrings of Madame de, and ellipsis. So, we do not know, we really do not know what her husband's name is. She is a madame who is wooed by several admirers, okay. And the plot is quite hilarious. It is not actually a comedy, but then you see the human error, okay, the human folly of passion in the movie. It is all about an aristocratic madame who is married to a very wealthy man, and he gifts her with a pair of exquisite diamond earrings. So, a very interesting movie, La Ronde, La Pleasure, and of course, Lola Montez. So, Lola Montez is Ophuls' masterpiece. It is based on a dancer, a 19th century dancer, who became the mistress of the pianist Franz Liszt, and later of Ludwig I, the deposed king of Bavaria. and she never has any luck with men. She repeatedly gets heartbroken and is dumped by them, and ends up in a circus where Peter Ustinov is the ringmaster, and she has to sell her life secrets to make a living, and also kisses to people. So, this is important, and Max Ophuls is credited for making voyeurism as an art. Okay, I mean, you just, whatever brief clipping you just watched, you must have realized how she is displayed as an object. Okay, she is not considered a human being at all, right? Okay, she is just there as a femme fatale, as if it is an object, okay, to leer at, to ridicule. So, an image presented for voyeuristic gaze. If you want to know more about voyeurism in cinema, then you should read an essay by Laura Mulvey. Laura Mulvey, we will be talking about voyeurism soon. Laura Mulvey, who talks about cinematic gaze. And Lola Montez, as presented by the ringmaster, and it is also a sort of meta cinema, you know, meta cinema, cinema about cinema. So, Ustinov almost becomes an alter ego of the director Max Ophuls and presents the actress to us. And how does he do it? The most sensational act of the century: spectacle, emotion, action, history, adventure. A creature, a monster, will answer the most indelicate questions, the most intimate questions, the most indiscreet questions. So, it is a way a director presents his work to the audience. So, come watch it and ask me or criticize me any way you want to. And then of course, the pan style, you know, the camera panning all over the place. And while she sits motionless and emotionless, but then lot is going on in her mind. So, Lola Montez was filmed in Eastman color and in Cinemascope. So, that is important. Those were big techniques those days, Cinemascope and Eastman color. It was an extravaganza, a very lavishly mounted film. And colors are often used very non-naturalistically, especially when Laura is transported back in time and in flashback sequences, where every tint goes according to the tone of the episode. So, when she is extremely bright and happy and young, as you have seen her along with Liz, the tone is very bright, but later on it keeps getting darker and darker. Okay, another French master, Jean Cocteau. You have any questions on Max Ophuls, Lola Montez, Fritz Lang? I am presuming that on your own you will do a lot of viewing and lot of reading upon these people. So, Fritz Lang, Robert Wiene, the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Murnau. Okay, these are the filmmakers you should be familiar with. So, Jean Cocteau, a poet, painter, sculptor, novelist and dramatist. So, Cocteau is also known for his plays, for his real multifaceted talent, and also a great filmmaker. So, some of his great movies: Blood of a Poet in 1930, Orpheus, which is based on his own play, 1950, and Beauty and the Beast, which is commonly a children's fairy tale, but in Cocteau's hands it becomes something else. Okay, so, that is 1946, one of his most everlasting and most popular, most commercially successful film, Beauty and the Beast. An image from Beauty and the Beast. Now, you have hands holding the various candles, hands springing out of walls and curtains. Okay, this is the beast's castle. You all know the story, the legend of Beauty, right? Beauty and the Beast. So, no explanation needed there. So, how she is compelled to lead her life with the beast, and as she starts falling in love with him. Why? Because she is able to see that beneath the surface there is a nice person. Okay. But Cocteau's mastery was in creating the ambience. Now, in children's fairy tale you would not have so many arms springing out of nowhere. It gives a certain kind of a very surreal, very unnatural kind of an image. But then the Cocteau's power was such that the film became a major success, and it was enjoyed both by adults as well as by children. Again, you can perhaps pay attention to the hands holding various candles while Beauty glides through the long corridors. This is Orpheus or the Orphe. So, in Beauty and the Beast 1946, Cocteau succeeded in creating, he was a master of imagery, the way he would create images on a screen, and very surprising, very unique kind of images of astonishing beauty, with Beauty gliding along the corridors and not just walking, actually she glides along. Mirrors transforming into pools of water, and candles lodged in humanoid arms affixed to the walls of the castle. So, you find all these astonishing images in the movie. And the great actor, French actor Jean Marais, he was the Beast, and Greta Garbo famously called out once the movie was over, "Give me back my beast." I mean, she was so enchanted. Greta Garbo, the famous star from Hollywood. Cocteau was a contemporary of Buñuel and Salvador Dali, both surrealists, and in Cocteau you will find plenty of surrealistic images. How many of you are familiar with a movie called Modigliani? Modigliani? Yeah?
I haven't seen it, but
Heard of it. Andy Garcia. Okay, watch the movie. Watch the movie. It transports you to that era where Modigliani and Picasso and Cocteau, they would all, you know, they were all each other's rivals. They live together, eat together, paint together, and fight forever, you know, for recognition, who is the best of all. So, watch the movie. It is not a very popular or not a hugely commercial movie produced by Andy Garcia, but a great movie nevertheless. Okay, this was also the period when films started. So, remember yesterday we started with this advent of cinema, 1895, arrival of the train at the station, workers leaving the Lumiere factory, and now we are coming to color and Cinemascope. So, in the early 50s, when Hollywood faced severe or major competition from television, all the honchos put their heads together and tried to figure out what they should do to lure audience back to the theaters. And they felt that apart from the introduction of color, Cinemascope will also help, because it will give you that impression of a hugeness, a big screen experience, which of course television cannot do. So, Cinemascope was devised by Henri Crétion and was purchased first by 20th Century Fox, a major studio. So, the technique involved using an anamorphic lens that which when mounted on an ordinary camera photographed images that were horizontally squeezed. So, this was the simplistically put that this was the technique, and these images would be unsqueezed during projection and resulted in an image wider than the film frame. Can you think of any film made in Cinemascope which had an everlasting impression on you? You know 35 mm and you know 70 mm. So, do we have all films in 70 mm nowadays in Cinemascope? Ever paid attention to these things? Why? Because we watch films on not in on screen anymore. Okay. So, the magic of theatre, we cannot stress enough on that. You want to watch a movie, watch it in theatre, there is nothing like that. Okay, so, you do not even know when was the last time you watched a Cinemascope film. Ranjit, can you think? I mean, it was an experience. Once upon a time, it was an experience because not all films were made in Cinemascope. It was considered a very expensive technique. And when movies started becoming cinemascopic, then naturally we needed theaters that could accommodate that kind of screen. So, Cinemascope screens, so many theaters had to go through lot of reinvention, reconstruction. So, it was big business and the experience is something else altogether. Read up on this and try to tell me whether cinema today is cinemascopic or not. Do we have 35 mm anymore? Whatever and what is the impact of digital filmmaking on screen? Do we have Cinemascope? Do we have 35 mm? Think of all these questions. Okay. So, Fox chief 20th century, I mean I am not talking about chief of Foxes, but 20th, the head of the studio called 20th Century Fox was Daryl Zanuck, a dreaded man. Many people hated him for a variety of things. And he watched the first two Cinemascope production, the earliest examples of Cinemascope. The Robe, starring who? Is based on Christ's life, but is starring who? Not Charleston Heston. I mean, I think that that's what everyone believes. You think Christ and Ben-Hur and 10 Commandments and think Charleston Heston. The Robe had the great Richard Burton. He is one of the generals. And How to Marry a Millionaire. She is a showgirl and a model. She needs to wear thick glasses, but she wants to marry a millionaire. Okay. And so, many a time the comedy arises because she has to take off her glasses and then she keeps on falling all over the place. A beautiful film, saturated with colors, sumptuously made and in Cinemascope. And then following the success of The Robe and How to Marry a Millionaire, Fox announced that subsequently they will be making films only in Cinemascope. In India, the technique came much later, okay, because after all it was a very expensive technique and required huge amount of expertise and expenses. So, the new fad caught on, although some filmmakers were not very happy with the way things were going on, but then soon it went on to become one of the most important devices to influence cinema. Any questions here, any comments? What kind of themes do you think Cinemascope is best suited for? Give me an example of a good Cinemascope film that you have watched. You haven't paid attention to it, okay. Sholay is one of the earliest films, okay. Why do you think that Sholay, a movie like Sholay, demands Cinemascope version? Why doesn't Sholay look the same on television? The locales, okay. It's a movie with immense magnitude, okay. So, all films which are epic in proportion, Gone with the Wind, 10 Commandments, or Sholay or Mughal-e-Azam, they require this technique, okay. But it is a technique which is not suited definitely for more intimate kind of films. So, you think of the kind of filmmakers who would make films based on the lives of the middle class, okay. Think of someone, let me test your knowledge of cinema. So, Sholay is an epic movie, we all agree to that, too many characters, all larger than life kind of cinema, okay. That requires larger than life projection, but a more realistic kind of cinema comes more intimate, closer to life, it does not require that larger than life kind of representation. So, therefore, 35 mm. Yes, Rehan, you seem to be very reflective.
Has it got anything to do with wide angle shots?
Of course, yeah, but wide angle shots also are best suited for a certain kind of cinema. You can't use a wide angle anywhere in Smita Patil and Shabana Azmi kind of cinema. So, the parallel cinema hardly ever utilizes, was not just about funds, it was also about the themes, a particular kind of theme, setting, locale, it requires Cinemascope, it screams for Cinemascope. Sholay cannot be imagined without that particular sound and cinematography. Okay. Much of its value emanates from its technical expertise. Many people are of the opinion that the plot is a lift from various sources, especially Once Upon a Time in the West, Sergio Leone's. Okay. But Sholay has been universally praised for its cinematography and its sound. So, a particular kind of cinema requires particular kind of scope and dimension, and Cinemascope is best suited for those. I mean, Jodha Akbar definitely cannot be shown in a compact version, but Shanghai, does it require necessarily? Love, Sex and Dhoka digitally shot? Not really. You do not need that kind of a mammoth scope for such kind of cinema. Definitely, I mean, we had Dibakar Banerjee with us talking about LSD shot on digital camera. It does not require that hugeness. We have the privilege of having Mr. Sudhesh Kamath with us, writer, critic, film reviewer as well as independent filmmaker. He will be talking to us about the process and art of independent cinema, how to make independent films. I know many of you are into filmmaking as well, and Sudhesh is an inspiration to many. And a word about Sudhesh, he has been a friend of the institute and has been associated with me on several of my film workshops. In 2009, we did a workshop with Mr. Kamal Hassan, which was organized on campus, and Sudesh was one of the key members of that committee, organizing committee. And since then, we have been doing several programs, film-based workshops in IIT, and Sudesh has always been associated with us. So, we do hope and that we carry on this association for a long time to come, and we cherish our friendship with you, Sudesh. So, over to you now.
Thanks so much, Professor Aisha. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. I remember we screened Good Night, Good Morning here during Sarang last year. I don't know how many of you watched it. Did you Did you get to watch it? Not too many people. So okay, so then I'm not going to get too specific about the content of the film, but what I'm going to try and do is take you guys through the journey of how we made the film as an example of how to make a film or how not to make a film. Okay, actually, until before I made Good Night, Good Morning, all my talks were about how not to make a film, because my first film was something I made in 2006, and that was really the eye opener for me on, that's how I learned filmmaking, through mistakes, and that's the only way to learn filmmaking. If you made 100 mistakes, you've learned 100 lessons. So I would urge all of you to go make a film, and I'd urge all of you to go make a really bad film so that you learn more and you make a better film. So to give you a rough idea of my journey into filmmaking, I wrote my first script back in '99. I didn't see myself as a filmmaker. I had just joined the Hindu, and I was catching up with a bunch of old friends from school, and we just looked back at our lives and saw how our lives had totally changed from what we had planned it to be and what we had become. So it seemed like a movie by itself, because this is what we wanted to do, and here we are. It's almost like life played this cruel joke on us. It was like that. So that is when we thought, hey, it would make a good movie, like life as a movie, and let's try to explore that through the story of a few friends. So that's how we wrote our first script. Me and my best friend from school, we wrote it together. It was a film called That Four-Letter Word. Now the thing which a lot of first-time filmmakers do is that they try to put in a lot of things, and that's one of the mistakes we made as well, because we were trying to tell 3 stories of 3 friends, and so each of them had their love story, so which means, like, think 6 stories, 6 characters at least. Okay, so 6 characters and 3 stories running parallelly, and then the film itself needed to have a larger conflict. So we were just complicating things too much. So we did make a fairly okay script on hindsight, but the execution, completely different story. Because as an independent filmmaker, you have limited resources, you have limited money. So the best way to approach an independent film is to work it out backwards and say that this is the resources I have, this is the money I have, so what can I make with this? Because nobody is going to give you money to make your first film, nobody ever. So if you're writing something like Harry Potter or Inception, come on, you need a reality check. Nobody is going to fund that film. If it's your first film, write something which you can make yourself, which your friends can act, because chances are it's going to be a bad film because it's your first film. And obviously when you're going to start, nobody starts out to draw and then draws a perfect painting or whatever, right? It takes practice. So filmmaking is a craft. It requires a certain amount of practice. It requires a certain amount of understanding of a whole lot of arts, and it's not just one art, because it's a synthesis of many arts. There's visuals, there's written word, there's music, there's art design in this thing. So with all this, as a director, you're supposed to know each of these departments. So it's a synthesis of all the arts. So there's no way you can say that I'm going to make a first film and I'm going to make a brilliant first film. That's definitely not going to happen. So how do you make a first film which you can produce yourself, where you won't mess up too much, which won't be an embarrassment for you in the future when you look back and say, oh, that is the terrible film I made. The idea is to make more mistakes, but not so many mistakes that you'll have to live with it for the rest of your life, right? So it's a fine balance. So I would strongly urge all of you to make all your mistakes at the script level and not to make them at the production level, which is why I think it's quite commendable that IIT does the series of screenwriting workshops every year, because that is a department which is highly underrated, the writing department. Films are actually written first. They made on paper. They're not made on film. They're not made on video. They made on paper. They made over pages of a script. Once you crack that, then everything else becomes relatively easy. So as I was saying, nobody's going to give you money to make your first film, and if you have to make all the mistakes in your first film, you better write it in the script. You make them at the script level. So how do you start? Where do you start? So first of all, let's get down to why are you making the film? All of you are filmmakers here, right? So why do you want to make films? What is your intention behind making films? Any answers? Are you making it for the market? Are you making it for yourself? Are you making it as an inside joke between friends? What is it for? There is no one standard kind of a film, because all our intentions differ and they're all valid reasons. So you could make a film as a painting because it's personal, it's purely expressionistic, it's totally valid. And you could make a film for the market, it's totally valid. It's just that the language that you use for a painting and the language that you use for a market might be a little different. What's the difference between a painting and a poster? A painting is hand-drawn, it's personal, it's abstract, it's impressionistic. A poster, the intention is to grab your attention, it's in bold typeface, there's a visual that catches your attention, there's a punchline, there's a tagline, everything's there, right? So the design of the film has everything to do with your intention of making that film. If you're making it for yourself, you don't have to care about the market. If you're making it for the market, you really need to know your market, you really need to know your audience. How many of you are Tamil speakers here? How do the rest of you commute when you're going by auto rickshaw? How do you talk? Yeah, okay. So basically you know that much Tamil, exactly, that's the point. Because when you're talking to an auto driver, you have to talk to him in a certain language, otherwise he's going to take you for a ride. He's going to think that, okay, this girl's come from the US, we can charge a dollar rate, you know. So because English, when you speak in English, the auto driver's response is very different from how you talk to him in the local language. And that has everything to do with films. When you're making a mainstream film, when you're trying to communicate with a larger audience, you need to talk to them in a language which they relate to, in a language that emotionally appeals to them, in a way that gets their attention, in a way that it communicates to them on what exactly are you trying to do, how far do you want to take them, or how far do you want them to go. So intention has everything to do with the design of your film. As an independent filmmaker, let's bring the economics into it now. You know very well that it's very unlikely that you're going to get a big enough release, because let's face it, the marketing reality today is that if you don't have a minimum of 5 to 6 crores, you can't even get a film released, because the publicity budgets alone are 5 to 6 crores. I'm not talking about production budget. In fact, the projection budget, as in the costs, how much it would cost you to project your film, itself costs something like 1,000 rupees per screening, which means that you need 7,000 rupees for 7 shows to just show your film, you know. And to collect the 1,000 rupees per screening, how many people should buy your tickets? You know, you need at least 20 people to come and watch your film. Independent films don't get more than 10 to 15 people walking in. So independent films in India today rarely even break even the projection cost. Forget the marketing, forget the production. So as a filmmaker, if you're going to make your first film, what does that tell you? Do you want to make a film for the market? Obviously not, because it's never going to get out there. So what do you make it for? You make it for yourself. You make it the most honest film that you can make. You make a film which will actually mean something to you even when you look back to it a few years later, because there are so many stories you can tell. Why are you wasting all your energy on this story? Why does it mean so much to you? I think that's one thing which a lot of us don't think about. We just invest on ideas just because it occurred to us. An idea occurring to you is just an accident. You shouldn't read too much into it. You should, it's like this girl you probably said hi to and you got attracted to, and then went home and then you kept thinking about her. Now if you're going to keep thinking about the same girl, nothing's ever going to happen. Okay, you have to really feel strongly about a person. and get to know that person really well before you know that yes, there is a future with that. It's exactly the same thing with a script. You need to be able to know why is this film important, why should I do this film. That film should mean, it should come from a deeply personal place for you to invest in that idea and do it. So having covered intention, I have to talk about the again economics. So since economics have everything to do with your actual production, don't write anything you can't make yourself, which means restrict the number of locations, restrict the number of characters, because even from a writing point of view, it's much simpler to deal with fewer characters and focus on them when you're starting out, rather than say that okay, because I've seen it as when I wrote that 4-letter word about 13-14 years ago, I thought I was being unique, telling a story of friends, and in the last decade I've seen dozens of films made by first time filmmakers all about them and their friends. It is the most common idea that people decide to make films about them and their friends growing up, coming of age, because every young person wants to make a coming of age film. So if it's anyway coming down to a coming of age film, make it more personal, make it about you, make it about one character instead of dwelling on an ensemble and doing that and all, because an ensemble means you need to find 6 actors who are talented or 8 actors who are talented, who all have to invest in the script, who all need to invest so much time, who all need to be like really good to pull off the script, because one weak link could ruin your whole film. If you watch my first film, you'll know what I'm talking about. So my motivation for making my second film was this. My learning from my first film was that you cannot make a film with no money, because I made that 4-letter word with 3.5 lakh rupees. It had a cast of about 8 people or something like that. Obviously we were not able to get like good quality actors because we didn't have money to afford them, so we basically took actors from theatre, and what came naturally to me was English, so I made it in English, and my vision was to make an Indian English film that would work pan India without it having a Madrasi tag or a Bombay North Indian tag or a Mallu tag or any of that. I didn't want race to get into this at all. It had to be, because the minute you make a film set in Madras, it's perceived as a Madrasi film, in Bombay or anywhere else. Nobody else would watch it. So already you're making a niche film, and then you're making a niche within that. So the idea was to make a pan India film without bothering about the specificity of a location and just speaking in English, because all of us speak in English, and English is sort of our national language. We all communicate, at least in the cities, we all speak in English. So the idea was to make an English film which works pan India, but the learning for me from the film was that Indian actors are very self-conscious when they are speaking in English in front of the camera. Not just actors, anyone. When you're talking with your friends, you would speak in a certain way, and the minute they put a camera in front of you, suddenly you get all conscious, and then your accent starts playing games with you. So that happens a lot in Indian cinema. Tell me, how many Indian English films have you seen that are actually convincing, where it sounds like they are real people? There's always a certain amount of theatrical element to it. They're actually doing a stage play there in front of the camera. They're actually doing theatrics, they're doing histrionics. You can see the level of acting, so you've actually created a barrier already. There's no, so imagine an independent film, okay, which is usually shot on video. What is it going to look like? Now for this we need to understand the differences between different kind of cameras. We have a video camera. What are the different kinds of cameras? We have a video camera, we have a film camera, we have your iPhone camera, we have your, and I'm sure all of you have experienced a little bit of everything, right? You've shot videos with your iPhone or your mobile phone, you've shot videos with a handycam, you've shot probably videos with a slightly more advanced camera once in a while, or at least seen, and you've seen film, and you've seen IMAX in the theaters. They all don't look the same, right? An IMAX screen looks like big, a film screen looks slightly smaller than that, a video screen looks smaller than that, a mobile phone looks smaller than that. The frame, as in what would fit into a frame. So an independent filmmaker is working with a small frame, but in his head he thinks he's making a movie. Okay, so the language he's employing is probably theatrical, but the visual or the frame that the human mind is used to is that of a home video, because that is the frame. We have all seen home videos, right? We've all seen home videos. We know what a home video frame is going to look like. An independent filmmaker making a film with limited resources in realistic settings with realistic actors or actors that he can afford, which are basically friends and family, acting out exaggerated sequences in fake English is going to be terrible, right? So you need to be conscious of what are you using. You're using a video camera, you're using a home video. So what makes home video home video? Any answers? It's uncut, and there's one more thing that happens with home video. The camera just keeps going. It doesn't stop. It doesn't, like, just because, see, that camera is like fixed. It's a tripod. It's fixed. It doesn't move. Okay. Now if you're going to look at it, it looks like a TV program because it's fixed frame, because in TV the frame doesn't move. It's still video, frame doesn't move. It's TV. Your mind tells you it's TV. Then you watch MTV, you see the reality shows. How do you know the reality shows? Because the camera is either watching you from a distant, some from hidden corner, or there's some guy who's going around like in your face, you know. So your mind knows what the camera is. We forget that people are exposed to images. We consume images every day. We consume images through TV, we consume images through YouTube. So we know that a video frame looks like this, we know a mobile phone frame looks like this, we know an IMAX frame looks like this, but somehow while making the film we forget that. We forget that we are using a video camera, so we can't afford to keep moving it, because if we keep moving the video camera it's going to look like home video, right? So these are the things we need to like think back and incorporate in the grammar that we are doing it. So basically, when you know that you want to tell a story which is honest, when you know that you're not going to have actors, when you know that you're working with a video frame sort of a thing, you have to keep all this in consideration and write a script according to that, which is what prompted me to make my second film, you know, Good Night, Good Morning, when I realized that I can't make a film with too many things with no money, because the true story of how I made Good Night, Good Morning has to do with the fact that my friend asked me what camera should he buy, and I told him to go in for this Sony HVR V1U, which was a very cheap camera at that point of time in 2008, and which we were getting for like 1.4 lakhs. It was a steal, and because cameras were very expensive back those days, and he bought it for 1.4 lakhs. So he bought it and then he didn't know what to do with it, so he kept playing around with it for 6 months, and in 6 months he cracked every feature of the camera. He knew how exactly to use it. He went and shot pretty much everything. The best way to learn a camera is to buy it and live with it for the next 6 months. You will explore every feature, you will know how everything works. How do you think kids are so good with video games? Did anyone teach the kid? Did the kid go to school, video game school, to like learn to play video game and go all these levels? Any kid can beat you at Temple Run or anything. How do they do that? Nobody taught them. At 4 and 5, if they're able to do it, which means that we are all capable of a lot more than what that kid can do with a video game. We just don't try it. We need to live with these machines to figure them out, because it's just a matter of figuring things out. So my friend came back with his camera and he said, I know this camera in and out, let's make a movie. And I told him, dude, we can't make a movie with just a camera unless it's, you know, 2 people talking on the phone, or, you know, 3 people in the house, because films cost a lot of money, and 3 people in the house was already done. Ram Gopal Verma had already beaten us to it. So we were stuck with 2 people on the phone. So we said, okay, if it's a 2 people on the phone sort of film, it would be boring. What if we make it split screen? So we are giving them 2 times the worth visuals, you know, at the same time we're giving them 2 visuals. So that's an interesting idea, that could work. What if we make it voyeuristic, you know, 2 people doing this thing, we'll make one a girl, so guys are not able to take their eyes off the girls, and then we put a pretty guy there so that the girls are also like, so I think that will work. And then everybody's got mobile phones, right? This is one of those rare classes where nobody's checking their phones, so I'm very touched, thank you very much. But if you go anywhere, you go to a movie theater, there are phones ringing, people are looking at their phones. any young girl is on the phone. You look at a girl or a guy today, any young person is today on the phone all the time. So we said this could work, a love story over the phone, two people on the phone, just one phone call, and through that one phone call they should probably fall in love and go through all the stages of romance. Okay, sort of the encouraging fact for us was that somebody had already made a movie called Before Sunrise or Before Sunset. You guys seen it? Please go watch it. It's just about two people walking the streets of Vienna and falling in love in the course of the night. So we thought that okay, it's been done before. It's proved. It's a proven fact that you can actually do a film with just two people talking. But Linklater, when he made Before Sunrise, made sure that Vienna had an important role to play. Vienna was the character. It's just that these two people were in Vienna. So Vienna was the third character in the film. So we were trying to make a Before Sunrise sort of a film without Vienna. So no space. So now when you don't have the space, then you're talking only, then the focus shifts from the space that you are in to the mental space or the conversation itself. What are you talking about? So their space, their limited space that they are in. So the idea was to put them in the most unlikeliest scenarios. So we thought that which is the last place a guy would want to have a romantic conversation, a cheesy romantic conversation, the last place on the planet, with his drunk friends. Trust me, there's no worse place to have a conversation with a girl than with your best friends who are drunk, right? So because otherwise it would have been just too convenient. Films happen because of conflict. Without conflict there is no film. Without conflict there is no story. Any story you take for that matter happens because of the conflict. Love stories happen only because of the conflict. If there is no conflict there won't be romance. So we had to bring a conflict. We had to keep we had to make sure that it wasn't ideal for both of them. We decided that the guy would be with his friends driving away from the place where he's with this girl, so that by the time he's done with the phone call he realizes he's too far away from her and then he can't go because she has a flight to catch. So we said okay, so that would be the outline. Okay, so they fall in love. As they're getting closer emotionally, geographically they've drifted apart, and now what are they going to do? So once we had that outline, so we knew that we knew the ending, we knew what the conflict was going to be. So we just had to break it down into the stages of a relationship. So then I looked up on the internet to see if there is any theory on that. There was nothing like that, so I made up a theory by myself saying that every relationship goes through 8 stages, and just randomly, just for the sake of structure. So I made up stages like icebreaker, because that's the time it could be anything, it could be some line that you said, or the first glance, or anything random. Okay, it's something that broke ice between two strangers. That's the icebreaker. The second would be the reality check, the second would be the honeymoon. Oh my god, I'm forgetting my own theory. The second would be the honeymoon, where you see only the good things about the relationship, where you're thinking, oh, this is awesome, this is great, she's so perfect, or he's so perfect, that kind of thing. Third one is the reality check, where you start noticing the differences in the other person. The fourth one is the big fight or the breakup or whatever, the first time you break up. So the fifth one would be the first time you patch up. Okay, the sixth time, if it goes, not all relationships survive all these stages. Some relationships get over at icebreaker, some get over at honeymoon, some get over at reality check. There is no guarantee for this. So after coming up with these 8 stages, we realized that to drive home the point that we are making through these 8 stages, that and the fact that these relationships could be terminated at any point, let's go back and let's illustrate this through stories which which these two people are telling each other. So which helped us to provide relief from the split screen, because throughout the film there are two people sitting and talking. So here was a good opportunity to actually dwell into those stories that didn't take off. So one was the reality check, where the first story is styled as a sitcom, where two people are talking on the phone until the girl meets the guy, and she sees that this guy is a geek. He's been googling everything. He doesn't know. He just found out everything about me, and he was googling everything, and he was pretending like he knows me all really well. So that's a reality check. So similarly, again, we created another Bollywood scenario to show that people might want different things after a level. So we came up with 4 or 5 episodes that were sort of milestones in every relationship, and we put them in to the film to drive home this point on what we were trying to do, on what the film was trying to do. So we were able to make our film only because we worked with what we had. We knew we had a camera, we knew we just needed 2 actors who were solid performers. We knew that we needed a couple of other actors who are okay, who can just pass off, who wouldn't have too much to do really. And even then it was quite a challenge for us, because one of these guys had to go to the US and we had to like shoot all of one half of the film in like 2 days. So it was, things always go wrong. The Murphy's law is always working overtime when you're making an independent film. Now so we made the film. We had written a different kind of an ending for it. We wanted the 2 people to meet halfway, sort of a metaphorical thing, that because for any relationship to work, people need to meet each other halfway. So if this girl is in New York and if the guy is in Philadelphia, they have to meet halfway in this place called New Hope. That was the original climax, right? So and the only problem is that the first time we shot the film, we shot in New York with a different actress. I won't name because it's being recorded. It cost us a lot of money. We lost a lot of money because this actress did not want to work with the actor at that point of time after getting to New York. So, and because I was making the movie from my own pocket, I lost 13 lakhs. All I had was for first 4 minutes of the movie. So I had to figure out a way on how to finish the film without going back to New York, which is how we arrived at the black and white structure. So I took a helicopter ride, I took all the aerial shots I needed, I got a taxi ride, I took all the scenery as you can see from a car, came back to Madras, decided that I'm going to make it like a 1950s film where films were still shot inside a studio, because back in the day they couldn't afford the outdoor shoots, right? So they would shoot everything in a studio, they would use reverse projection and project footage of moving images and give you an illusion that, so it's a fixed car, so the car is, there are a bunch of people shaking the car, and there's a reverse projection that gives you an illusion that you must have seen, all of you must have seen this. So we decided we were going to say that it was intentional. So we made the lines cheesier, we made it like old movie, we used jazz sort of a score, because it has to flow, it has to seem like it was organically that way. It can't, people should know that we didn't have money to do it. People should think that this was the design, this was the original idea behind the whole thing. Why is this film in black and white? Oh, because it's a talkie, obviously. Oh, it's jazz, it's the old world romance, that's why it's in black and white. It wouldn't work in color. So a lot of people today are convinced that the film wouldn't work in color, but actually we had conceived the film in color. A lot of people today think that the ending is so, it's so beautiful that we don't show whether they meet or not, and the reason we didn't show whether they meet or not is because the footage we shot was really bad. It had fake snow. So we had, on the editing table, we had to figure out, what do we do? This snow looks so fake, we can't use this, so what do we do? So we said, okay, what if we cut the film before they meet? Like, but that wouldn't make sense, right? Saying, no, but what if the film begins with a phone call, right? What if we say that she's just getting one more phone call? So then it becomes like a full circle. So then we had to just assemble it stylistically to make sure that that was the intention behind the whole film, to make it look like the life cycle of the film is that of a phone call. So then the ending doesn't matter. So that is how we arrived at the ending. So films can be fixed even at the editing table. You just need to have an open mind and you need to figure out, this is what we need to do. So basically independent filmmaking is, it's a balance between a lot of planning and then controlling the chaos that happens when things go wrong. Yeah, so make sure you're dealing with few variables so that you're that much more in control of your film, you're that much more in control of your vision, so you're that much more in control of the end product, so that at least you're proud when you look back at the film and say that, hey, I made this film, it didn't suck that much, right? Okay, so I'm just going to probably wind up with the scene then, because I've done talking more or less what I wanted to talk. This was the original ending that we shot. Okay. Okay. these scenes were shot in New York, okay, when we went there. The person sitting in the car is a different actress. But this was shot in Madras at Chembarambakkam Lake, which you can see. So because we couldn't show it was Chembarambakkam Lake, we kept the camera inside the car and we had this party foam sprayed into the frame. That is the only frame where we had used Chembarambakkam Lake, but we had to cut it within 1 second because we didn't want people to find out where we had shot it. And we cut to all the endings of the episodes that we had shot to show that this story would have worked if this character from this story had met this character from the other story. And see, the snow, it looked really fake because somebody was not able to control the pressure on the spray can. So which is the reason why I didn't want to use the scene. Like, and this is from back in New York. This is again part of footage which was shot in India. It was just this happy kiss and ending. Okay, yeah. So that is how, because of that fake snow that you saw, was the reason that I didn't want to use that ending, because it seemed so bad that snow was really fake and it would just look low budget. When you're making a low budget film, you don't want people to know you're making a low budget film. It should look, people should get involved into the story than the economics of it. That is going to be your biggest challenge as an independent filmmaker. People shouldn't be, you can't say that I didn't have money, that's why I made this. That is not an excuse. People don't care you didn't have money. They're giving their time to watch something good. They're watching it because it's a story. Would you watch a bad film for more than 2 minutes? No, you'd walk away. What if that guy had sold his kidney to make that film? You don't care, you know, but that's the whole point. So it's not an excuse that you do not have money, which is the reason why though the film was required only 2 people talking on the phone, and though it could have been shot in India, I made it a point to go to New York for the first 4 minutes of the film. That would convince people that money is not the issue. The story needed only this much. You know the film is a phone call film, right? And so obviously when people are going to watch it, you don't want them to go in beginning to think that, oh, it's a phone call film, it's just going to be 2 people talking on the phone, I don't want that whole thing. So there's even more responsibility on you to make sure that it's entertaining, to make sure that they don't bother about the economics of it, they don't worry about what you had to go through or whether you had money or not, no money. That's not their concern. So we had to start off with oh no, sorry. Yeah. This radio thing is something they recorded on 31st December in New York. So it brings that much amount of credibility to the place. You can't recreate this. So you set the mood, you get, and that's real snow, that's not fake snow. So I've completely, with that sort of an opening, with showing you this canvas, I made you forget that you're watching a small film about 2 people on the phone. So it's basically New York, establishing where it's happening, the world, I'm taking people into the world. So that's the shot of the previous actress walking away. So that's why I've blurred it. So you can't see that's her. And later, when we went back for the festival, we actually went and shot with Seema. So that one is Seema now. So this is actual footage from New Year's Eve in New York City. So this we shot when we went for our first festival screening. Seema walking into a pub in New York. She walked in and then walked out. That's what you don't see. This was actually Pod in Chennai. And we had 7 people there to make it look like a New Year's party. So what do? We make it look like we are only focusing on real close-ups. So see, there's like, you can see shadows of people behind, but you can't see too much. We couldn't have it empty because it looked haunted. It's New Year's Eve. So we had to have some people like moving around. So we're intercutting between the outside space and the inside space. And see, this frame is populated with people. So you're mentally thinking that obviously it's a pub. On New Year's Eve, there's going to be like people sitting bunched together. So we're cutting back to her. And so we use these lights to give it one more layer so that, so you're not paying attention to where we shot it. We're just underlining the fact that we're just trying to remind you that this is a pub, so it's more like subliminal cues. This was shot against pure black and nothing else. That 2-second shot. This is shot outside the studio in Madras. So that's why the camera is like that. But when we cut it with that, it just seems like we shot that in New York as well. So that's where the film is supposed to take place, New Yorker. We follow this girl to the room. So she goes, so we follow her. This is again pod. But the thing is, I've taken you through the streets of New York, followed a girl and gone into a room. So now I don't have to show you the rest of New York because the script demands the film is set here. So the film doesn't require the outdoors anymore. So that's one way we New York, we were there for a couple of weeks. So again, this is what I was talking about. You see the back, that's reverse projection that's going on. And so the film begins with a phone call. We have set the mood. The phone rings. This is where the film begins. So from now I don't have to go back to streets of New York because it's just this space in her room and with a split screen where we're showing the guy. So we dive straight into the story. Guy is drunk dialing a girl and he's talking to her.
Perfectly beautiful sentences.
Obviously she's going to hang up. For the rest you have to buy the DVD and watch the film. And also we're running out of time. So, but yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, with you not on the phones. Yeah.
So thank you so much, and we'll BTechs can leave now. And thank you so much. We can thank Sudesh first before leaving. Say now.
Thank you.